Hello, welcome to Bible Guru Through the Bible, Genesis chapter 15, the life of faith in the God of Genesis. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield and your very great reward. And Abram said, You have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir. Then the word of the Lord came to him and said, This man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir. He took him outside and said, Look up at the sky and count the stars, if indeed you can count them. Then he said, So shall your offspring be. Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. We've already seen the God of the Bible is the God of life. In Genesis 13, we saw that the God of life is for his people. And we see that that is exemplified in the life of Abram. Later on, he'll be called Abraham very soon. So we can see in this example life in the Word, life without fear, life of promise, and life of eternal reward and relationship. This is the first time in the Bible that we see the word of the Lord. It's just after Abram came back from defending Lot and small kingdoms of Sodom and Gomorrah and others from invaders. Abram then refused to take a donation from the king of Sodom. He may have been mulling over that. He may have been thinking that he shouldn't have fought with these 5 small kingdoms, each of which may have had allies who would now think of Abram as an enemy. He may have regretted saying no to the donation from Sodom. In this situation, the word of the Lord came to Abram and gave him words of comfort and promise. The word today. God calls us to live prophetically. He has a plan and a vision for each life and is willing to reveal that vision if we are willing to receive it. God calls us to live a life of walking in His Word, and He calls us to live a life without fear. This is the first time God mentions fear. His word concerning fear is, don't. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. Jesus says, Do not be afraid, it is I. Here, God says, Do not be afraid, I am your shield. If God is your shield, what is there to fear? God calls us into a life of His Word, a life without fear, and He calls us to a life of promise. There are 70,000 million stars and 100 billion galaxies. We really can't number them. God promised Abraham, when he's very old and has no children, that he will be the father of so many kids that you can't number them, just like you can't number the number of stars. And such a life of promise is given to us as well, as Paul said. The Scripture declares that the whole world is a prisoner of sin, so that what was promised, being given through faith in Jesus Christ, might be given to those who believe. If you belong to Christ, then you are Abram's seed, and heirs according to the promise. We are all called of God to live according to His promises. But He calls us to more than that. God calls us to life in the Word, life without fear, life of promise, and He calls us to a life of eternal reward and relationship. The physical situation was not the important thing. The one who promised was. Abram believed God's promise. God accounts this to Abraham as righteousness. Righteousness is not the receiving of God's promises. It is in believing God. Many people today come to God because they want healing or deliverance, financial help. God comes to us because He loves us. He wants to be near. The most important thing to God is not a thing. It's a relationship. Why can't we be more like God? Thanks for watching. Please watch our other Through the Bible videos and subscribe.